Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at elasticity. Um, there are four types that we need to know about. So we've got PED, PES, XED, and YED. We're going to start with PED, and it's all about demand and how it changes. So PED stands for price elasticity of demand. With all of them, if you ever get asked to define it, you can just state the equation for it. And the easiest way to remember the equation is just do the percentage change of the third letter divided by the percentage change of the first letter. So in this case, PED equals the percentage change of demand divided by the percentage change in price. For example, if I asked you about PES later, you already know the formula now. So price elasticity of supply, and what would the formula be for that?
The percentage change in supply over the percentage change in price.
Exactly, nice and straightforward. So going back to PED now, if you did want to know it in words, which you can just use the formula, but it's just the responsiveness of the third letter given a change in the first letter. So it's all about measuring the responsiveness of demand given a change in price. Now, what we just learned when we did demand is that demand is always downward sloping. So we already know that whenever the price goes up, Tristan, what happens to demand? Does it go up or down?
Down.
Cool. However, what we're going to learn now is that, yeah, it goes down, but by how much? So for some things, when the price goes up, demand barely goes down. It just goes down a tiny bit. That's called inelastic because the third letter is not changing much when price changed. Demand is barely changing. So it's never going to go up. That would be weird if price went up and demand went up, but it doesn't go down by much. Okay. And on the other hand, you've got some things where the price goes up and then demand goes down a lot. So that would be called elastic. Okay.
Yeah.
What we'll do is we'll look at all of the different examples of elastic and inelastic, and we'll look at what causes that to happen. So if you've got a PED where, say, for example, let's pretend the price of something went up by 10%. So example one, it goes up by 10%. Demand goes down by 1%. Example two, the price goes up by 10%. Demand goes down by 20%. Example three, the price goes up by 10%. Demand doesn't change at all. And example four is when demand goes up by 10%, and the price goes up by goes that the demand sorry, the price goes up by 10% and the demand goes down by infinity, like all the way to zero. Okay. The last one's a bit weird, but so let's go through them one by one. So obviously this one we get minus 0.1. This one we get minus 2. This one we get 0, and this one we get minus infinity. Okay. That is called inelastic. That one is elastic. That one is perfectly. Esan, what do you think? Do you think that's perfectly elastic or perfectly inelastic?
Inelastic.
Cool. This one's perfectly elastic. And then I just forgot one more. Say, for example, if um it goes down by 10% when the price goes up by 10%, then it's going to be -1, and that's unit elastic. Okay. So this isn't something to memorize. I would rather you understand what's going on. Always try to understand, is the third letter changing by more or by less than the price? And you'll be able to figure it out just by practicing and revisiting it over time. Um, so basically, whenever it's 0 point something, it's inelastic. And whenever it's a bigger number, doesn't matter about negative or positive, then it's elastic. So
Yeah.
0 point something, inelastic, and then the other ones are elastic. Okay, perfect. So what causes some goods to be elastic? What causes other goods to be inelastic? Again, I'm going to use an acronym, sandpit, but don't worry too much about these, depending on if you've done it at school or not. Um, Tristan, can you think of anything where even if the price goes up, people won't really stop buying it much? They might cut down a little bit.
Um, I don't know, but I can like give an example
Yeah.
because um like the time it takes to buy a product, like Oasis tickets, that's what we did at school. They took like it took a lot of time for the people like waiting in the queue, so they didn't mind the higher price.
So you're saying because they had to wait in the queue for ages,
Like
they,
the price sounded more reasonable to them.
okay. So that's a really interesting one. Um, but okay, so that's a really interesting point. There's something called I'm not going to include it now. I don't want you to learn that as a reason. But it's interesting. It's something called sunk costs. It's like, oh, I've been in the queue for 1 hour. I'm not going to not buy the ticket now because I've already wasted 1 hour. So they're factoring that into the price. It's called sunk cost. It's like, for example, imagine if you've done, imagine if you did year 12 economics and you didn't like the subject, and someone asked you, do you want to do year 12 again and pick a different subject? Well, even if you hate economics, you're still going to carry on because who's going to go and redo a whole year? Okay. So I guess that does make something inelastic. I'm not sure where that falls as a factor, but so I'm going to avoid it to not overcomplicate it. But that's a good example. Esan, can you think of anything else where the price will go up, but people will still buy the good or service?
Could it be if like they really, really want it? Like if they'll proper make them happy?
Yeah.
Like
Can you give an example? Or
um maybe someone's like always wanted a specific car and
mm,
then the price goes up maybe just a little bit, but they'd still want it.
yeah. Okay, good. So I'll mix it up a bit then. In the case of a car or a laptop or a mattress, so a mattress would last you like 10 years, or a car would last you 10 years, depending on what car you get. So we can say durability as one of my factors, because if it lasts long, a 10% increase in price, if you're factoring it over 10 years, is not so much. But then you also mentioned about how someone really wants something. So just on that point, imagine if what stuff people really need and what some people really want. That helps us to understand two more of the factors. Before I say them, any other ideas?
Necessities.
Yeah. So, for example, I think we talked about coffee last week, but just in general, if the price of milk went up, people will still buy it. If the price of eggs or rice went up, people would still buy it because it's a necessity day to day in your household. And then on the other hand, you've also got stuff that people are addicted to. So if something is addictive, then it also becomes inelastic. So if the price of like crisps, obviously there's different levels of addictive. You can talk about cigarettes, you can talk about things like crisps or snacky food. If the price of them of those favorite snacks went up, demand would still remain quite high just because they're addictive or habitual things that we consume. Um, what about stuff that, what about if the price of petrol goes up? What would happen? Would people cut down
Pe
or not cut down?
Probably just use it more wisely.
Mm. Yeah, okay. So, but what does that depend on? What if, so if you live in London and petrol becomes expensive and you need to go to work, what could you do?
Take the tram or like the
Yeah, like
underground.
alternative.
Yeah, public transport. But what about if you live somewhere where there's no public transport to work or you need to go at night or something, or you, like for younger people, maybe you can cycle, but for older people, then so how would you describe that?
Like there's no other alternative.
Yep. And in economics, what do we call an alternative? Like we talked about it briefly.
Opportunity cost.
Yeah,
Nah.
yeah, no, opportunity cost is good. I'm thinking more of, related goods when we're talking about the coat and the jumper.
Yeah.
Oh,
What's that called?
substitutes.
Yeah. So the quality of substitutes. Okay. So just to recap what we've done so far, if the quality of substitutes is low, if there's no close substitutes, that good or service will be inelastic. If there's a lot of close substitutes, that good or service will be elastic. I can just drop it and do something else. For example, if petrol becomes expensive, um, it'll be in the middle because, well, the people who have cars, they probably see it as way more convenient and there's substitutes, but there's no high quality substitutes to driving a car.
Yeah.
So demand would remain high for petrol. Whereas other people might think, okay, I can just use a e-bike instead or a public transport instead or that kind of thing. Obviously, necessities will be inelastic. Water, energy bills. If your energy bill goes up, you can't do anything about it. You just have to, you're not really gonna cut down on your heating or your water or your cooking.
Yeah.
Cool. The last two you guys probably won't get first time round, so I'll just help you out. So one of them is Freddo bars. If Freddo bars go up by how much were Freddo bars before SI, roughly?
I don't know, like maybe 30p, probably.
Yeah. I think
I'll
there
say
was a time
30p.
when there was 5p or 10p.
Yeah, back in the
Um,
day.
so but so they've gone up by like more than 100%, right? More than
Yeah.
200%.
Yeah.
But people, has demand gone down a lot, or do people still buy it?
People still buy it, yeah.
Why does the 200% price increase not matter? Whereas if a laptop went up by 200% from, say, £500 to £1,500, why would they stop buying that, but they don't buy the Freddo bar? They still buy the Freddo bar.
Because it seems like the percentage is a lot, but the actual price is like seems
Exactly.
insignificant.
Yeah, exactly. The absolute value of it only went up by 15p,
Yeah.
but that 200% is 15p, whereas for other things like a washing machine or TV, 200% is from 500 to 1500. It's £1,000, whereas for a photo bar, it's 1020p. So we say proportion of income. You can word that one however you want. You can even say percent of income. It's the I and the P put together. So that's just one thing, yeah?
Yeah.
So if something is worth a small proportion of your income, we're not going to care about price changes at all. And if
Yeah.
something is a decent proportion of your income, then price changes are going to hurt our budget, and therefore we're going to consider them quite carefully. For
Yeah.
example, we're going to look at tax later, but there's a sugar tax.
Hmm.
So before, I remember every can of Fanta, Coca-Cola, Mirinda, if you go to a chicken shop or a newsagent or Sainsbury's, anywhere, they were always 50p. And now, if you look at the prices, it's actually funny because if you look at Diet Coke, does anyone know the price of Diet Coke right now? Roughly. It's still 50p. But if you look at normal Coke or Fanta or Sprite, how much is that when you buy it at a shop, roughly? You're on mute.
No, I'm not sure.
It's like £1, but it's because uh these ones have sugar, so they got taxed to and the price went up. We're gonna learn about that separately, but again, people still buy uh the Coke. Like it doesn't matter because it's a
Yeah.
big increase in price, but it's a small proportion of your income. So it's the 50p doesn't hurt someone's budget that much. So
Yeah.
therefore, we would say that's inelastic. So you could say Coke is addictive and a small proportion of your income. The last one is time. Um, so there's a bit of a link to what you said before, but it's more like that's not really it. It's more like when it comes to time, it's more like over time there'll be more substitutes, or over time something will become less addictive, you know? So for example, cigarettes, if you wait, cigarettes used to be extremely inelastic. But now there's vapes and e-cigarettes and all these kind of different things. Or alcohol, now there's alcohol free. Or Coca-Cola, now there's Coke Zero, Diet Coke. These have just got better and better over time. So that other thing becomes more and more elastic over time because there's more substitutes. So we just have to know that everything becomes more elastic over time, which usually because of these other reasons. Okay, cool. That's pretty much it for PD. Just
Mhm.
for we can fit in PE